All right, so let's look at another example. So this is example 2. Let's look at another example here. In example 2, we are dealing with option number 2. So let's look at option number 2. One side length and one acute angle measure given. Okay, so if I know one side length and one angle measure, there again, there's different places you could start, but it seems to me like I'm going to first label everything I don't know. Let's call this maybe you don't want to use X, but I'm going to use X. That's fine. X, or let's not use X because we already have an X in the problem. Let's do E, D, and F. All right, so this can be E, and this can be D, and this can be F. You don't necessarily need to do that. You could just call it angle Y if you wanted to, and side ZY if you wanted to. So this is just a different way to organize your problem. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is find the measure of angle Y, which is my value of E, right? That's what I called it, at least. And that one's easy to do because we already know the other two angles, right? So E is going to equal 180 minus 90 minus 29. That's going to give us our value for E, which is going to be the measure of angle Y. So you can go to your calculator and do 180 minus 90 minus 29 is 61. You could actually just do 90 minus 29. You'll get the same thing, but some people like to go through the whole entire thing. So that's 61 degrees. So that is the measure of angle Y. So there it is. First thing done. We have 2 more things to find. We then need to find the measure. I'm going to then find, I guess you get to choose at this point what you want to go with next. I'm going to go ahead and find D, just go alphabetically, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the length of XZ. So the length of XZ for me is going to be the variable D, just to sort of keep it simple for me. And again, this is an option here where you have to, you've got to use trig to do the problem. Because you don't know enough sides to use Pythagorean theorem yet, we need 2 sides to use Pythagorean theorem. So let's find another side, and then we can use good old Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to deal with angle 29. And so here, I'll mark this. I'm going to deal with my angle 29, and I'm trying to find D, and the only other side that I know is 18. So that's what we're looking at right now in order to do this problem. Okay, so knowing that I'm at 29 and neither of these are our hypotenuse, I know that I'm going to use tangent. So I'm going to again use tangent, but this time it's tangent of the angle, and we know the angle, it's 29. Setting up your ratio, remember that it is opposite over adjacent, TOA, right? So we're using the TOA part. And so it's going to be 18 over D. Solving this, and multiply both sides by D to allow this to cancel out, leaving me with D times tangent 29 degrees equals 18. And then I have to divide both sides by tangent 29. Remember, if you need more practice or more examples of this, check out my video on this solving using trig ratios on YouTube. There's some examples there, right? So you're left with D equals 18 divided by tangent 29, which you're going to have to use your calculator to do that. So take a moment, put that into your calculator, and see what you end up with. Okay, you should have gotten an answer for XZ to be about 32.5. And it's not and remember, this is xz. That's what this is. It's a side xz. So whether you called it a variable or called it xz, it doesn't matter. You get 32.5, right? So this is what I know so far. I know that so far I found E and I found D. The only thing I have left to find is our good friend F over here, right? So now that I know D is 32.5, that's what it is, I can now find YZ, which is my variable F, and we can do that using Pythagorean theorem. And the reason we can use Pythagorean theorem is because we know two sides of a right triangle and we just need to find the third side. So setting this up, again, F is a hypotenuse, so the other two are legs. So it's going to be 18 squared plus that side length you found, 32.5 squared equals F squared. Okay, so go ahead, do your 18 squared, go ahead, do your 32.5 squared on your calculator, and we will see what we get. So 18 times 18, so hopefully you're going through that math. Take a moment and do that. This is 324 for 32.5 squared. You should have got, it's a pretty big number, 1056.25. Add it to the other value that you got, which was 324, and you get 1380.25, and then you want to make sure to square root that so that you know what F equals. So we're going to square root that answer, and you get 37.2. And again, this is a side length. This represents YZ, and that is the last part that you need to find. So these problems do take a little bit of time. So you need to learn to be patient with the work, taking it one step at a time, doing one variable at a time. Remember, you can only use Pythagorean theorem if you know two of the side lengths. You can only use the idea that the sum of the angles is 180 if you know two of the angles. Otherwise, you're using a trig function. Sometimes you're going to use the trig function using the ratio. That's when you're trying to find a side. If you're using trig functions to find an angle, you're going to use the inverse trig, which is what we used back on number 1. Okay, so I'm giving you some practice on this on your worksheet, so good luck with this, and let me know if you have any questions.